We continue our study on the context of biblical history this week, considering the Roman Empire. Rome, according to tradition, was founded by two brothers, Romulus and Remus, in 753 BC. The sad story, of course, is that Romulus killed Remus in order to name the city after himself. Although briefly ruled by kings, Rome very quickly became a republic and was the great republic of the ancient world. Its founding took place about the time that the northern kingdom of Israel fell to the Assyrians, to put it into context with what we're studying in the Bible. Rome began moving out of Italy in 264 BC. First, Rome consolidated the entire peninsula of Italy, and then as it moved out, it ran into conflict, first with the city-state of Carthage. Carthage was a Phoenician outpost in northern Africa, and the war between Carthage and Rome were the Punic Wars, which continued over many years. Eventually, Carthage was defeated in 200 BC, and in point of fact, not only was it defeated, it was completely destroyed and was sown with salt so it could never again be revived. Rome, in due course, gained control over the entire western Mediterranean in 146 BC. And then Roman rule soon extended over Macedonia, Corinth, and all of Achaia. And so moving to the east, taking over the Balkan Peninsula and then down into Greece, Asia Minor began to fall under Roman control as well. The area that we now think of as Turkey. A very important event occurred in 133 BC. Attalus, the king of Pergamum, bequeathed his territory to the Romans. He did not have an heir, and he saw that Rome was a rising power, and he felt it was best for his people to become part of the Roman Empire. This extended Roman control and eventually would cause the Seleucid Empire to fall to Roman control. Pompey, a Roman general, defeated the Seleucids in 64 BC, and because of this, in 63 BC, the next year, the Jews lost their independence to Pompey and would remain, except for their periods of revolt, in one way or another under Roman control from that time forward. An important figure for us to note is Antipater, the Idiomedan. He was a descendant of Esau, an Edomite, and the Edomites had been assumed into the Jewish state, but they were never viewed as being truly Jewish. And yet, Antipater and his son Herod would prove to be some of the most skillful politicians of the ancient world. Antipater supported Pompey until Pompey's death in 47 BC, at which time he switched his allegiance to Julius Caesar, who had been Pompey's rival. We're going to see that Herod followed in his father's footsteps, being very nimble in switching alliances. Caesar granted many favors to the Jews, both in Palestine and in the dispersion. In fact, the Jews would maintain these privileges until their rebellion in the first century. However, Antipater, as governor of Judea and as a friend of Rome, was not loved by the Jews. He was hated by them because he was an Idumean. Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC, and Antipater was poisoned by his enemies the next year. Cassius and Brutus were defeated by Antony and Octavia at Philippi in 42 BC. And Antony assumed control of the eastern provinces. Antony made Herod and his brother Faisal tetrarchs of Judea under the ethnarch Hyrcanus II. Basil and Hyrcanus, however, were taken prisoners in a coup, Herod escaping to Rome. Anthony and Octavia declared Herod as king of Judea, and with Roman help, he took possession of Galilee and Judea. Herod the Great, then, would reign from 37 BC until his death in 4 BC. Now, these dates are important, especially the date of his death, because having died in 4 BC, we see that our traditional dating for the life of Christ is inaccurate. For Jesus had to have been born before the death of Herod. Therefore, most think that Jesus was born more like 6 BC, which of course is very awkward since BC is before Christ, and yet it just recognizes that the ancient dating got that wrong. Herod the Great was a vicious ruler, but he was very skillful. He was able to switch alliances as need be. Anthony was defeated in the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, and Herod informed Octavian that he would serve him with the same loyalty he had shown Anthony, and Octavian believed him. Although Palestine remained nominally independent until Herod's death, its real sovereignty lay in the hands of the Roman legate of Syria. Palestine was never a senatorial province, nor was it an imperial province. It was merely a jurisdiction, a section of the Roman Empire that was a dependency upon Syria. The Roman Procurators would govern in Palestine following the death of Herod. The first one that we will deal with is Pontius Pilate, the one we know so well because of his role in the trial of Jesus. He was the procurator from 26 to 36 AD. He was the 5th procurator of Judea. He always had a very tumultuous relationship with the Jews, and was eventually removed from office because the Samaritans had been in revolt, and he ruthlessly mowed them down with such violence that the Roman government decided to replace him. Antonius Felix, from 52 to 59, was the judge of the Apostle Paul. He was a very oppressive ruler and caused so much resentment. The anti-Roman sentiment among the Jews was heightened. He was followed by Porcius Festus, AD 59 to 61. By all accounts, he was the best procurator that they had in Palestine. He was just in administrating the province. A few weeks after he entered the office, the case of Paul, who was then a prisoner at Caesarea, was reported to him. The next day, that is, after he heard the report of Paul being imprisoned, he went to Caesarea and heard Paul defend himself in the presence of Herod Agrippa II and Bernice. In point of fact, Paul would have been released following this hearing, except that he had appealed to Caesar. Festus, after being in office less than 2 years, died in Judea. Gessus Florus was Roman Procurator of Judea from 66 to 73 AD. Florus was known for despoiling whole cities. He was ruthless and greedy. When Florus dared to appropriate 17 talents from the temple treasury, however, the people's patience was at an end. Believing God would come to their rescue, they came out in the year 66 in open rebellion against Rome, and the Jewish war had begun. Now, in considering Rome and its relationship to biblical history, we find, of course, that it is the Roman Empire against which the New Testament would be formed. The life of Christ and the apostles was lived under the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire would continue for hundreds of years after that time and would serve as the springboard for the beginning and growth of the Christian movement. We'll be considering the events of the first century and the continued growth of Christianity following that in subsequent lessons. Thank you so much for joining me.